Welcome to the Fintech Power 50 webinar. Established in 2018, the Fintech Power 50 is an exclusive Fintech accelerator program designed to help scale up companies with their international and their domestic growth. We focus on four main areas of PR amplification, business development, talent services, and investment. Today, we're going to be talking about data is the new air, without which companies cannot survive. So first of all, I'd like to say hello to our audience. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope you're going to have a very interesting debate. We will be taking some questions throughout the webinar, so please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screens to do so. We've got a great group of people for today's conversation. We're going to be looking at the advancement of data use within some key sectors, such as financial institutions and insurance. We're going to take the opportunity to explore when and how data became so valuable, the use of data to develop new products and services, and the risks in data being so valuable. So we're also going to invite my colleagues onto the screen and ask them to give them a quick introduction. What I'm going to start off with first of all is maybe go to Durrell, and perhaps you give us a quick introduction and overview.
Hi everybody, thank you Mark. My name is Durrell Blitz, VP Strategy and Business Development at Personetics. I'm with the company for the last 2 years. Personetics is a global category leader in AI and personalization for financial services. We are a 10 years old growth fintech company, working with over 50 global top tier banks all over the world, helping them to actually use the power of AI and machine learning, and of course their biggest asset, which is financial transactional data, in order to dramatically increase customers' engagement and digital sales. Thank you.
Wonderful. And Andrew, perhaps you give us a quick introduction.
Sure, thank you, Mark. It's great to be here. Hello, everybody. So my name is Andrew Brockway. I am the CTO for Confused.com. We were the first price comparison site. We launched 20 years ago, and I'm one of the founding members. And we basically, our rationale is to help customers find the best deal, clear the confusion of insurance and financial services, and basically be the slingshot when they're the David in the insurance industry and financial services, the Goliath of confusion. So we're there as a tool for the customer.
Wonderful. And last but not least, Manak, give us a quick introduction.
Yeah, hey Mark, good to be here. My name is Mayank Samaya. I'm with Visa. Have been with Visa for last 8 years, being in San Francisco and now very recently in London. I'm part of the ventures team here at Visa and lead up the partnerships and programs on our venture side for Europe.
Wonderful. Thank you all for joining us. So this kind of the webinar sort of concept came up with some comments that happened probably a few years ago, where people were saying data is the new oil. Most likely started in the Middle East, one would imagine, where they were sort of saying the currency is really, really high. And I think it was, sort of a few months ago, I was talking to one of our Power 50 influencers, Chris Skinner, and he said, well, actually, it's even more valuable than oil, because actually companies can't survive without data these days. So actually it's more like air. So hence why what we're sort of thinking about is, the data and its use within businesses. So what I was going to do first of all is just go around the panel and just sort of see if you could sort of recall or think about when was it you that really understood the real importance of data, and what were the sort of circumstances around with that? And maybe if we start with Andrew on your side of things, because we're not saying that you're the oldest member of the group or anything like that, but you've been in the comparison market for a very long time.
Yeah, you're probably right, Mark. It's very kind way of putting it. I think it was really, for me, at the start of the build out of Confused.com. So the proof of concept back in 2000-ish was, can we kind of add clarity to the insurance market for customers, right? Because there's all these great brands out there. How do you find the best deal, and how do we help the customer get to a decision faster? And can we save them money? We can't save them money, we're going to save them time, right? And my first role within that was to actually map out the insurance schemas to a base schema to try and rationalize that kind of problem, if you like. And it became very, very apparent very, very quickly that data is huge. If we can't simplify things for the customer in an elegant way, not saying we got it elegant from day one, or if we're as elegant as we should be, it's an ongoing thing, then we haven't got a leg to stand on, right? And we've got to ensure that we've got data integrity, that we're mapping in the right way, and we're presenting the data back in a way that's digestible but accurate. So from the very early days for me, it kind of resonated that data, we're a data business essentially, whether that's pushing huge amounts of data over the internet or making sure that it's mapping the right way to help the customer make those decisions. So pretty much from the get-go, I'd say.
Yeah. Mainak, obviously from Visa's point of view, Visa has obviously been around for an awful long time as well. So obviously, what's the sort of perspective that you would have about the sort of importance of data?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and I think the interesting part is for me, it's very difficult to think if I've had one moment where I realized the importance of data. I think we have been in very interesting times. World has been evolving very quickly in recent times, and I think I've come across multiple instances where I've been awed or sort of thought that, you know what, wow, it's like good data can be used and can be very valuable in so many different ways. I think some of the very recent interesting moments would be looking at how data starts to play a role in through open banking. If you go beyond payments, just as an example, I think how do you start looking at the way data is starting to play a role in healthcare with smart devices, or the continuous enhancement or sort of ability of how we are looking at predictive analytics or how artificial intelligence continues to evolve. I think all of that has been quite fascinating and something you continue to learn, to say that, you know what, I never thought this could be possible, and now it's being possible as technology evolves.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And again, Darrell, I'm not saying you're the youngest member on the call, but Personetics is obviously a company that has become more important and influential given data. So what's your sort of feedback on when and how data became valuable?
So actually, before I joined Personetics a long time ago, I was a banker, and I remember when banks really relied on branches and human interface, and everything wasn't about the data; it was about relationship, and it was about mostly product centric, not customer centric. And I think in the last 15 years, finally, we are seeing how the banking world is really moving from product centric into customer centric into a data centric, and really rely heavily on the customer's most important asset, which is their own financial transactional data. The second thing I'm seeing finally, and Personetics, we are working with the world's largest banks, how banks are really trying to reposition themselves and becoming much more important in their customers' financial life, but also to very, like Chris Skinner is actually saying, invisible bank, how banks are really trying to provide a meaningful, seamless, frictionless engagements with their clients, how banks are really making themselves much more smart, proactive, and knowledgeable with their own clients, and helping their own clients to better manage their financial life, to stay on top of their finance. So the questions are, what is the relationship model between banks and clients? What is the monetization model? And the data is a crucial part of that, because at the end of the day, the data is the only asset that banks truly have around their customers, and they can really leverage that to provide value, really relevant value towards their clients. Because, Mark, customers don't care really about their own financials all day long. They have dreams, they have needs. They don't care about a mortgage or a specific loan. They want a bigger house. They want a trip, hopefully, to Disney World in the summer. They want a good education for their kids. They have specific needs and desires. And I think banks, they can really help customers to better strengthen their own financial resiliency, to achieve their own financial goals, to use these financial transactional data, and to move customers from FOMO, fear of missing out, into JOMO, joy of missing out, where customers can really sit back and relax, and banks can become this real-time, cool friend, trusted advisor that will help customers, even automatically, to better manage their financial life. And that's why data is so much important today.
It's interesting. And a new acronym that I didn't know existed has come out of that as well, the JOMO. I should use that again. Andrew, just thinking about the sort of comparisons to what Darrell was saying, but sort of into the insurance world. Obviously, insurance companies, I guess when Confused.com was being set up, actually had a lot of data that they were sitting on. But really, the sort of the role of Confused was actually to take that wider than just one insurance company that they're sitting on, and to actually bring in other factors. So was that kind of the sort of like the way that data sort of emerged as importance?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we kind of moved to a place where we were able to present to the B2C side of things. We can present to you, Mark, as a customer, the entire market in real time and, help you make a decision. Similarly on our B2B services, so we run data insights, which is essentially a tool for the insurance panel to subscribe to that allows them to view how they're performing against their competitors, their peers. And what that allows us to do then is kind of get hopefully a virtuous circle going where insurers can tune their rates and their underwriting to such a way that they can fill in the cold spots and zero in on the insurance books that they're looking for, whilst we can also share with them the trends that we're seeing. So we're kind of the top of the funnel, if you like. After Google, you've got price comparison and then insurers. And from that, we've added in third-party data sources, additional variables like device, and more, which tend to become more kind of rating factors and more predictive of risk and trends, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, data, it's a value exchange in as much as that we're a free service, but the more data and the more kind of meaningful attributes we can pass on to the insurers, the better the product is. And we've seen insurers come out online and actually build up thanks to our platform and thanks to that data set.
Yeah, as you say, because they have a particular risk model or risk appetite, they can correctly find the right type of consumers that they want, as opposed to having to, use a very sort of fixed viewpoint on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And Mainek, on the point of view from sort of Visa side of things, I mean, a lot of people would assume that Visa has the most immense amount of data possible because everyone sees the Visa symbol on the card and sees that they're paying with you. But is that actually the case?
I think Visa is in a great position, or from a network perspective, we being a network on which sort of the transactions sort of run, or being one of the largest network in the world. So I think it is great that we have that kind of expansion across the world. I think from Visa's perspective, it is we look at data from a perspective of how can we sort of provide the highest priority to security, innovation, and sort of with responsibility be able to do that. So I think it is rather anonymous and sort of it is function in that way. But if you look at it, I mean, the way data starts becoming useful is how do we use it for security. So I'll give you one example is something which we call Visa advanced authorization. So it is one of our products, and the way it uses it's one of a very sophisticated anti-fraud detection system. So it uses artificial intelligence and sort of even the tiny percentage of suspicious transactions that flow through the Visa's transaction network can be caught through it. So I mean, from our perspective, we always have a rather simple view that data needs to be looked at and be used from a security perspective and responsibly innovating into new examples. I think if I just take an example a bit outside of insecurity. So we have something of an API which is called Visa Q Insights. What it does is it uses machine learning to provide Q insights at a merchant's location. It allows you to understand better the behaviors around there, better utilize the POS, better understand what's the line at this merchant. How do you look at offers? How do you look at your consumer relationship? So again, I think data, as Andrew alluded and what Darrell mentioned as well from a banking perspective, I think data plays a key role to how how the world starts to look at businesses now. But I think these are a couple of examples in terms of how Visa looks at sort of innovating with data responsibly.
Yeah, and Darrell, from your sort of perspective, obviously, one of the subjects we want to look at is how is data actually driving innovation? How is it driving new practices? Is that something that you guys see with the financial services people that are sort of using your insights, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think, it's not about the specific data, it's about the value. It's how banks, after, under this COVID-19, how banks are going to increase financial resilience, how they are going to increase share of market and share of wallet. And we spoke about, relationship model and monetization model, and it's all about of how they are going to use the data. In the beginning, banks use data just as a part of process automation. Instead of 8 clicks loan, make it maybe 2 clicks loan. And I think banks are moving from this robotic process automation into a higher level of personalization and even proactive, smart engagement. And I can give you several examples. Again, at Personetics, we are working with over 50 global top-tier banks. Some of our clients right now are using data in order to deeply understand financial stress of specific clients on a customer base, on a retail personal level, or even a small business client. And we're using all sorts of cash flow and income disruption analysis, all sorts of stress indicators that we can ask Personetics to deeply understand and detect impacted or about to be impacted retail or small business customers, and really help banks to proactively engage with these about to be impacted customers and provide all sorts of relief or recovery options, and really help customers to avoid going into collections or delinquency. Now, this is really important. That's exactly what customers are expecting today. They are not just expecting banks to provide them a much better loan. They want their banks to be there on their own side, to help them to pass or to go through these really hard times, hardship in their life. And I think by using smartly data, proactively engaging with customers, really helping customers to better manage their financial life, to increase trust, to increase engagement, and then to increase upsell and cross-sell capabilities, that's exactly what customers, I think, are looking for today. And we have a lot of examples starting from personalized financial data-driven insights and alerts and recommendations, and even all sorts of automated financial wellness programs where we are helping banks to actually approach customers and automatically save for the future, or maybe cut a specific debt, or even using open banking mechanisms like Plaid, which is a great company acquired by Visa, so we can have a much better holistic, aggregated view of the customers, even including cloud accounting systems or other banking and checking accounts. That gives a great power and information for banks to really be there for customers, and again, make a lot of great money and value out of that.
Yeah. And I think coming to Andrew, I think there's a lot of talk obviously about open banking being sort of the freeing up, but actually a lot of people are now saying actually it's more about more open data, open finance, and actually from an insurance point, bringing that into the fold as well. Obviously Confuse has developed its product and its understanding, its innovation all the way through. Where do you kind of see that sort of opening up of data going and being able to sort of benefit the consumer, but also how you'd have to pivot to take advantage of it, as it were?
That's a great question, Mark. Let me just add something. I just want to add one comment, please, Andrew. And this has come back to insurance. We are going to see a lot of conversions between insurance companies and banks, and the insurance companies are using the power of open banking and providing a much better solutions. One of our clients is the world's largest insurance company, AXA. And we are working with AXA Bank, which is a digital bank in France, and they are actually already providing insurance products, banking insurance products to the clients. Once the open banking standardization will, and it's not just the API, it's much more than that. Once there will be an open banking standardization all over Europe, we will see great insurance companies, and Aviva is one of them, of course, really using the power of open banking or open data, like you said, Mark, to provide a much bigger, meaningful relationship and value towards their clients.
Yeah. He's stolen your thunder. He's stolen all your thunder, hasn't he, Andrew?
Those are really good points, Darrell. I think, look, data really is the shape of the customer, right? It's essentially giving us an idea of what the customer looks like and what their needs and wants are. I think that's what it comes down to for me. And when you talk about things like open banking, open insurance, and open finance, this should remove a lot of the technological friction that currently exists to enable those flows to be a bit more elegant and a bit more kind of hopefully predictive. But the risk is that we lose sight of what the customer actually wants. So always, what's at the heart of this really is helping our customers, right? So I think, the next 4 to 5 years, hopefully we'll see some traction on that. What it means to Confuse is it's an opportunity and a threat potentially, because it's completely smooths out the kind of friction that we're trying to alleviate. But it forces us to innovate as well. So I'm very hopeful that we'll continue to help the customer in a meaningful way on that basis. But I think it's really important to not lose sight of the fact that the customer's at the heart of this, and the data really is essentially the customer's persona, and how do we support that customer in the right way? I think that's what it always comes down to.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of nicely segues into sort of like the other sort of area to talk about is like, where's the risks? We hear a lot of words like data bias, we hear a lot of fraud risks and various else. You know, how does that sort of play out?
I think you hear horror stories around, deep learning, machine learning algorithms behaving unexpectedly. I don't think that's necessarily a new thing, because as soon as you put some kind of software service into production, it's going to behave and interact with the real world in ways that you just haven't foreseen, right? When you start laying algorithms on top of each other, you're going to get complexity and potentially obfuscation multiplying. So I think that the risk really is that we lose that nuance of what the customer is looking for and how we're making those decisions. I'm a huge fan of automation. That's my background, is software development, software engineering. But when you're looking at huge data sets that can affect people's lives, right, bleeding edge in terms of that human interface, you've got to keep an eye on that nuance, because otherwise it's technology over people, and that's the wrong balance. It should always be customer and people centric.
Yeah, and there was a comment that was made that was from the audience saying that that they felt that actually the bias is sort of entered into an automated system by human interaction at some point during the data collection. So if you collect 4 sets of data and then a human decides which one's right, and then you teach the machine that one was right, you've given it bias by the human being involved in the situation. If the human had never been involved, then that sort of thing wouldn't happen. Maybe asking Manik to sort of comment. Obviously, both insurance and financial is very heavily regulated environments. So presumably there is a balance between, what we'd all like to see or what we think we could do, and how we work within them sort of regulations. What do you see is is there a obstacle, a hurdle with regulation, or how do you see that playing into the whole data play?
It's interesting. I don't know. At least from a personal perspective, I don't see it. I don't think it is potentially a hurdle. I think things are going to progress in a way where we're still understanding how things are developing. We're still understanding what are the implications of this, how this all starts to get sort of designed and used and so forth. So. I don't know. I don't know if this is a hurdle. Of course, it's everyone's going to learn. Everyone's going to work with the regulation. I think we're going to do what is and Visa at the heart of it, I think, continues to do what is the best for our clients, what's best for our consumers, and ultimately sort of leveraging data in a way that it's more sustainable and scalable from a network perspective. I think from our perspective, we continue to look at opportunities from this perspective where it is sustainable, and we can work with whether it's regulation, whether it's sort of how the industry is evolving, and how do we sort of start building out things that are moving towards the future, moving towards the services we are looking to build out for the future, and a lot of work gets done. I think Durrell's example around how they help consumers, potentially vulnerable consumers or consumers needing more information from the perspective that he mentioned, that's something which is very interesting, where actually good data is able to help them push it through the banks in terms of how that helps consumers. Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting question, but I think ultimately all of this allows you to look at an opportunity to innovate and sort of evolve in a better way.
As I say, it's kind of like, and as Andrew sort of alluded to, everyone needs to maintain the customer in the middle of their thought process. Because Durrell, sort of coming to you, there is obviously a risk with all this data and all these things you could do, that there is a risk of not necessarily still doing it because the customer wants it, but because it's commercially more viable for the company. What's your sort of thoughts on that sort of area, and how to sort of regulate or police it in some way?
That's a good point, and I can't really avoid that. At the end of the day, I'm providing a white label, personalized, financial data-driven engagement platform, and I'm providing it to global banks. And of course, in the end of the day, yes, we are using over 3 dozens of our own proprietary AI machine learning models, and we know how to deal with data, how to access, how to analyze that. and provide rich content. But in the end of the day, it's up to the banks to decide what is their own specific business objectives, their own policy. And that's a fair question. And I think you also raised a good point about the bias. We are being constantly monitored by our clients and by external vendors on our models, even by regulators. And I think we are trying as much as we can to explain our clients, our prospective clients, global banks, the power of really empowering customers. When the customer is much more resilient, when the customers have a much better understanding of how to manage their financial life, the lifetime value, the stickiness, the adoption rate, the conversion rate, the reducing delinquency rates, all of that are providing a great benefits for bank. And it takes time, you're right, to really educate our clients why they should really look forward, they should really look after their own clients, why they should really take a deep care about their own clients, making sure that they know how to manage their life, and it will pay off maybe on the long term. But we cannot really, force them. And that's a process that we are keep going on and making sure that our clients know how to properly use our products and our solutions and really think about the customers and the long-term significant business impact they can get out of that.
Okay, it's interesting. Maybe coming back to you, sort of Andrew, on the same sort of area as that. We're obviously thinking about the responsibility of correct data use. Obviously, there's obviously the regulation side of things. There's obviously most companies, I firmly believe, actually want to do the right thing, but then there's always that area of the market where a company is going to use it differently. What's your thought on sort of regulating that sort of flow?
I think that's a really good question. I mean, our research shows that about 70% of customers are anxious about sharing their data freely, unless there's some kind of value exchange, whether they're going to get something that helps them in their life, whether saving the money or saving time and money. I think that we have the regulator that we work hand in hand with. We see the regulator as kind of an extension of us, that our focus is to avoid customer harm. So that's a good thing for us. I think the culture of the organization is massively important. So the C-suite at confused.com will pore over customer feedback on a weekly basis. We engage with the customer support team regularly. And it's, if you're not getting bored about saying how much we champion the customer, then it's within the organization itself. It's got to be the kind of DNA of this customer centricity, that we're looking at the customer pain points and we're thinking about that. We're stewards of the data, if you like, to kind of look after that in such a way that benefits the customer, because without customers, we're nothing. So it's, I guess, a combination of governance, culture, and regulation. I think it's probably a fair stab at how I would answer that.
Yeah, to do that. And sort of thinking of sort of, the open banking idea was really a group of banks coming together and saying, we're all trusted entities. We're happy to share data between us because we all know we're going to play fairly with it. So again, sort of thinking about the future, are we actually asking that we need more people to get together and make it a much bigger team of people?
I think so, because if it's in the interest of the customer and we're helping move things on, we're not we're not introducing friction for the benefit of the organization or the financial institutions rather than the customer. I think it's got to be a good thing. We've got to remove that friction and kind of get more effective at sharing that data in an elegant way, I think.
Interesting. So it's amazing how time flies when you're talking about data. We've already been speaking for 30 minutes, and I know some of us have got some other things to do. What I was going to ask each of you is really maybe just this sort of like take a minute to sort of reflect on the overall topic and sort of give a little bit of a feedback on that. Maybe Darrell, you could go first with that.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you. I think it's a fascinating topic, and I think coming back to open banking and data outside, I think banks should first of all, stick with what they have. And financial transactional data is an amazing data. And once you are deeply analyze and understand the customer's, financial behavior, past, present, and predict the future, and using even outside data, if it's possible, you can truly better provide a deep, meaningful value or business impact to your clients. This is where we are, focusing as Personetics, and the ability to really generate great engagements and trust, and of course, intimacy with the clients, and then provide great abilities to customers to really manage better their financial life, if it can be small or retail customers, small business or mass affluent, or even just the cardholders. I think this is exactly what customers are looking for today. I think that data is actually more than just the air. This is the fundamental of anything between the value of financial institutions and their own clients. And I think there's a lot of things needs to be done in order to even reach a very higher level of that. But I think banks and in the UK or all over Europe are really making some really bold steps right now, even under the COVID-19, to really help customers to fulfill their own financial goals and needs.
Wonderful, thank you. And maybe coming to you, Menak, your sort of final thoughts.
Yeah. Again, I think this is an extremely interesting topic and sort of a key fundamental in terms of how the business world or sort of the entire different segments or streams are moving, like you did in the beginning, in terms of not just the payments world, not just banking. You look at healthcare, you look at multiple different streams. They all are evolving with sort of what is happening with data and how they're sort of responsibly used and how does it advance some of the work that's being done. I think it is super interesting. I think it will continue to evolve. I think it is going to continue to increase innovation. I think it's continue to provide effective competition. And I think ultimately, from our perspective, sort of keep on repeating this, but I think security and sort of innovation stays as heart of our network. And I think use like sustainable data and using it with security, reliability, and sort of proper privacy and so forth. I think we continue to see a lot of advancements coming into this with new services and new solutions.
Wonderful, thank you. And Andrew, your sort of final thoughts.
I think it's three things for me, really. It's the customer. That's one, but I repeat it 3 times because it's so important. We live in a very exciting, fertile time in terms of the technological capabilities to kind of store, process, and mine this data in an effective way to help people is unprecedented. And if we can combine those two things, that customer obsession, good tech and data know-how, with a team that can communicate well and enact for the customer, I think we've got a very exciting kind of future ahead of us. And there's lots of good stuff going on. And yeah, it's a great time. And data is the key to it all, really.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of, you know, the importance of data is unmistakably going to transform and change people's businesses, lives as we move forward. And I think we just need to continue talking about the conversation. So thank you very much for taking the time to be on the panel with us as well. I'd love to thank our audience for joining as well. Sorry we couldn't get through all of your questions. I think we could have been on the line for about an hour and a half if we'd gone through everything. But obviously there is a debate still to have. Let's get onto the Power 50 LinkedIn page, follow the conversation there, and let's keep talking about it. Thank you all for your time. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.